Kathy up there, she's on the screen, and we've got Jen. Now, Kathy is going to be speaking on a product that she came across, and I think the best person to actually explain what is going on is Kathy, because I can explain it, but I probably cannot explain it as well as what she can explain it. So I think we'll just say that it's over to you, Kathy. Is it possible to get that screen larger, or do I need to make it larger? Just hold on, let me see if we can get the screen larger, Kathy. Okay, there you go. Okay, so it's over to you.
Yes?
Anything else I need to do? No? Okay, well, can you talk, Kathy, and see?
Yes, I'm ready. All I can see is you, Cheryl, and the ceiling and the lamp.
Okay, that's good. So we actually can hear you now. So it's over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Cheryl. My name's Kathy Bontrager, and I'm from Hutchinson, Kansas, the center of the United States. And I'm really excited to share my God journey with you, with what's been going on with me the past few years. It's a story of a lot of pain, but of a lot of healing. And I'm just so grateful. I want to right off the bat just give the Lord all the glory because He 100% brought this to me. And I know that He wants to share this with other people too. So that's why I'm here tonight doing this. I did write notes because I don't want to forget anything. So if I look down a little bit, that's why. What I'm going to talk about is this product that is 10 to 15 years ahead of its time. It's called Redox Molecules, and it's actually made from salt and water and a technical process that was invented and done to it by an atomic scientist. And it's pretty amazing product here. But first, I'm going to start with telling you a little bit about my journey. In 2004, the Lord blessed me with a retail gift store. I started from the ground up, and it was very prosperous and very beautiful, and I loved it. Several years into owning it, I started to become very ill and started to seek natural health for my healing because I preferred that over doctors. And eventually I had to give in and go to the doctors, which was very humbling and very discouraging at the same time. But I continued on my journey to try to get well. I was diagnosed with two autoimmune issues, very serious, very severe ones. And I will tell you right up front here that with this company, we do not share the name of our diagnosis, and we do not claim that this product will heal or cure. It's actually what it does to the body, so the body will heal itself. So just wanted to give you that disclaimer there. I was blessed on my journey as I started to seek out a lot of natural health practitioners, and I found some really good ones in my area, became very close to them, and I tried all kinds of healing methods. I mean, you've probably done them all. I did them all. I did literally everything in the book. I learned about the courts of heaven. Of course, I went to the courts of heaven. I dealt with everything that I had or that I felt like he was bringing to me. I did Libus. I did all kinds of very intensive healing things to get to this place. And I always thought, what's wrong with me? You know, why is everybody else getting free and why am I still sick? And I claimed my healing. I believed I was healed, and I tried to walk in faith the best I could, and I still had issues, and the issues became worse and worse. And unfortunately, in 2015, we had to close the shop because of my health. I was having to pay so many employees to work for me that we couldn't get ahead, and I just couldn't keep up with it and do everything. I couldn't go to markets. I couldn't. So I had to call in help because I couldn't get out of bed to go be there. So we closed it up in 2015, and it was pretty depressing and hard on me, but I still tried to plug through. And I ended up pretty much becoming homebound. I could get out and do a little bit of socializing, but I really had to buck up and pretend like I was okay. I could get injured real easy. I always had a limp. I was always in a lot of pain. I was never sleeping. I had terrible nights and had to depend on coffee to try to get through the day. And I was just pretty much a blessed mess. But I continued to press on to look for answers. And then in 2018, I got connected with a naturopath in Fort Collins, Colorado. I saw her once in person. The rest of our visits were online. Her name, just to give her credit, is Dr. Rhonda Marcus from Fort Collins. And she's actually, if you know Robin Main, it's her sister. And she helped me with my journey, helped me a lot, treated me very well with glutathione and some other things. But I still wasn't there. I was starting to see improvements. I didn't have to use my walker every day when I got up. I could walk around the house normal. I didn't use my cane as much. When I'd go outside, I'd have to use my scooter to get around the yard. But pretty soon I got to use that less. But I still kept seeking the Lord because I still had issues and I didn't have total freedom. So the summer of 2018, when I was with the Lord, he gave me one word, and it was mitochondria. And I'd never heard that word. I didn't know what that, I had no clue it had anything to do with the body. I looked it up. I had a lot of brain fog then, and I don't know if I just didn't register with it, but I pretty much got from that my mitochondria in my cells was sick because mitochondria provides energy to the cells, and I didn't really go anywhere else with that at that time. But then August of 2018, I had a naturopath here locally that had been working with me. And she, she's not a naturopath. She's a natural practitioner. She does a lot of kinesiology and energy muscle testing. But she was telling me about this new product that had redox in it and that she wanted me to try it. So I thought, sure, I'll try a bottle. Took one bottle, and I had a lot of pain, which I always do. And it's like, is it what I drank, or is it this, or is it that? And I'm not going to go through it. And I didn't take it again. But I kept hearing about stories in our community of people that were getting well by drinking this stuff. So I'll share a couple of those amazing stories with you. The first one is, I don't know this person, but she has worked with him, and he was in a coma. He's 21 years old, and they started giving him the product, and he actually came out of the coma, and he can now dress himself, and he can feed himself. Now, I heard he still has a long ways to go, but that in itself is amazing. And then I have a friend that is a farmer that lives in Inman, Kansas. And for years, for 3 years, he had a really bad knee. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, it's bone on bone. You have to have surgery or wear a brace. And they're really big into natural health, and they just knew that they could heal it naturally. And so for 3 years, they treated his knee, and it got a little better, but not better because it was bone on bone. So one day, his grandchildren were there, and he went to pick up his granddaughter, and he twisted his knee, and he injured it all over again like it was in the beginning. And he just threw his arms up, and he said, I'm not going to go through another 3 years of pain. I'm just going to have to get the surgery. And it happened to be the same day that the redox molecules got there. So he thought, what do I have to lose? He took 2 ounces every hour for 6 hours. And by the end of the night, his grapefruit-sized knee the swelling was totally gone. The next morning, he got up and he could walk and he could run. And he used to have to use a 4-wheeler to get around his farm. And to this day, he's walking and running. So I'm hearing these testimonies of these people that I know and from what they did, but I realized that I wasn't taking the product right because I just did it once. So I'm going to forget anything here. I also had joined a Facebook group where they were giving testimonies about the product, and it was just amazing. And there's like 70,000 people in it, and it was just one right after another. And also there was another gentleman that my natural practitioner friend worked with, and he came in with a prostrate count of 600, and he was terrified because they wanted to do the treatment on him. And he didn't want to do it, and he didn't like natural health, but he wanted to try anything. He was desperate. So he started taking the redox molecules, and I'm not sure how many months, if it was 3 months or 6 months, but his prostrate count is now 3, and he did not have to have any of the treatments. So again, that's another local person here in my area. So I decided I better get serious and try it. So she recommended I take 2 ounces 2 times a day and kind of increase it, since I had a lot of issues, increase it throughout the day. And this was in February of this year. And now I'll just tell you, I'm so excited. I can almost cry, but I'm not going to. Now, well, first I started drinking it, and it works differently for everybody. So not everybody gets results right away. It's very rare to get results in one day, like my farmer friend did. But within 2 weeks, I started sleeping for the first time in I don't know how many years. And I used to have pain when I'd go to bed at night on my left side and my right side. I think it was from my adrenals. And within 3 days, that pain was totally gone, and I could sleep on my sides. And I can sleep through the night, and I get up and I feel refreshed like I hadn't done in years. And so this was all new to me. And not only that, I was starting to feel stronger at my core. I had vitality come back. because for I don't know how many years I sat in the chair in my living room, and I got so good at going into Facebook groups. I was on Facebook all the time, I'm confessing, because I didn't have a life. I was stuck in my chair. I mean, I had my Bible, I had, my time with the Lord, which was wonderful and totally carried me through. But now all of a sudden I have vitality, and I was up and out of my chair more, and that was amazing. I felt rested and the brain fog left. I was balanced hormonally and emotionally. I was just like a brand new person, literally like a light switch had been flipped. I don't really know how to explain it. I was up out of the chair. I wasn't taking naps during the day, and all of my energy came without coffee or even green tea. I had absolutely, and still to this day, have no stimulants whatsoever. I maybe will drink a little green tea every now and then, but I don't need it. I feel wonderful. I did detox from the coffee, though. That wasn't fun, but it was only like a 2-day headache. And now in the kitchen, I can cook again. I can pick up cast iron skillets. I can use a garlic press. I can use a can opener, a manual can opener, and I can peel potatoes. And let me tell you, my husband used to wait on me hand and foot. He had to do everything. He had to help me in my chair in the morning. He had to get my water. He had to bring me anything I needed until I could get around to start moving enough for the day. So not only did I get my life back here, but my husband got his life back. So it's a double blessing for both of us. Plus, I'm happier, so that makes our whole atmosphere better. I can do stairs now, and I recently discovered that I can do yard work. I cannot get on my knees yet, but I had him buy me a new rake, and I've been raking the yard, and I love it. I'm actually outside in the sunshine. I'm living. I'm enjoying life. I can go to the grocery store and not have the handicap cart. I love to go to the grocery store. I love to clean my house and do all this work you wouldn't think you like to do, but it's been so long that now I'm just so grateful and thankful. He has real heavy work jeans, and so I can pull those out of the dryer wet. Now I can shake them and hang them up and do all his laundry. So that's a big blessing. Socializing is a blessing, and not having to put on a front of how I'm doing and how I mean, I really am feeling good and doing good. And then I got some blood work back this week, and it is the best it has looked since I was diagnosed. And if you're familiar with inflammatory markers on lab work, C-reactive protein tells your markers, and mine was the lowest it's ever been. It's actually 1 point from being normal. So that's a real hallelujah thing. And I'll continue to get that tested to be sure it stays stable. I'm not 100% off all my medications yet, but I have cut back, and I know I soon will be. I've heard lots of testimonies of people getting off of all their medications. I read one where one gentleman got off of 53. So I don't know what he was on them for, but that right there is really good. So what I did, I drank it every day faithfully. The company recommends you at least try it for 3 to 6 months. It's real easy to want to give up quick because you don't see anything, and you're like paying for something and you're not seeing results. But it's impossible for this not to work because it has redox molecules in it. And we have redox molecules in us already. We just have less of them because we have aged or a toxic environment. Redox, R-E-D-O-X. Redox, yeah. Sorry, sometimes when I'm excited, I slur, or I don't talk real clear. I also applied, they have it in a gel, and I applied the gel to my wrist a lot and like to my knees and my feet. I still apply it every day because you can use it for more than just pain. You can use it for rashes and all kinds of things. I have a friend named Catherine, and Cheryl, you know her. She's from Nebraska, and she has for 3 years had a real bad rash on her arms and has literally tried everything in the book to get rid of this rash. And she started drinking the Redox 3 months ago and applying the gel. And she called me today so excited because the rash is 100% gone. So that was good. My husband is taking it now for 3 months, and he had cancer of the tongue. He didn't take chemo, but I wasn't supposed to say what, I wasn't supposed to use the C word, but he had radiation on his neck area. And so he applies the gel there and he gargles with it. And they said because of the radiation that he could have a lot of teeth and mouth issues. But he went to the dentist and the hygienist couldn't believe what good condition his mouth was in. And the dentist actually took one cavity off of his chart and said the other one wasn't enough to worry about. So they were on his chart from the time before. But that was great too. So he's loving it. He's got energy with it too. My mom is 83 and she's on it. And something we both have noticed is that the barometric pressures here in Kansas can be brutal, but they don't bother us at all. And she's got better mind function, I think, and more energy as well. It's really good. I mean, I've read testimonies of it helping people with memory and with brain injuries and the other kind of brain things that you can get. So pretty amazing stuff. So I have a book here called Healthy Cells, Healthy Life. And this is by Dr. Robertson Ward. I don't know if you can see that. Is it backwards to you guys? Okay. Well, Dr. Robertson Ward, and he wrote a book about redox molecules. And I was just going to read this paragraph to kind of give you a scientific thing of it, explanation. Okay. In the same way that cells are building blocks of the body, redox signaling molecules are the building blocks of our cells. They are the smallest common denominator for our health, even affecting the expression of our DNA. Redox signaling molecules are combinations of 4 types of atoms. They are able to travel to all parts of the body, even crossing the blood-brain barrier. The term redox refers to reduction or oxidation. Redox signaling molecules are responsible for regulating all these chemical reactions. They are what is keeping us alive. So our bodies already have these and need these for life. And we have more of them when we're born. But as we age, like every decade, we get less and less. And then the environmental factors that we live in today and our diets and stress and everything, that all affects the redox signaling molecules. So let's see. This amazing redox water was invented with a special 3-day technical process using the purest salt on the planet and water. This process makes the exact redox signaling molecules that we have and need in our body. So they have rearranged the salt and the water molecules, and it turns them into this redox signaling that we have. It was a discovery. I read somewhere it was like one of the greatest inventions of the time, and it's really not getting the notice that it needs to yet, but it's getting ready to. They give energy to the mitochondria, which is the word the Lord gave me. They open up the pathways to the DNA, and they also open up genetic pathways for healing. A healthy amount of them is critical for long and healthy life. And they're unlike any other supplement. They're not like oils or anything natural that you've taken. There's actually no other product like this in the world. They are 100% non-toxic. They are safe to take with medications. You can't OD on it. They tried to test it in a lab with rats to get the rats to die by taking it, because that's how the FDA tests products, I guess. And the mice couldn't OD on it. And they finally concluded the only way the mice would have died would have been to drown them in it. So that's amazing too. And let's see, I don't want to miss anything here. It's starting to get a lot of attention around the world as more studies are coming up. And this is exciting. I saw a flyer in another group, and it says that this summer in Paris, there is going to be a redox signaling molecule congress of doctors from around the world. And all these doctors are going to meet to discuss redox signaling molecules and the body. They're not going to talk about our product. We're the only product on the planet that has it. But that's the recognition that redox is starting to get. So this thing with all the doctors going is going to be a huge breakthrough for redox signaling. It also carries, this is really neat, it carries a label from biotech laboratories. It carries a seal, it's a seal of approval from Bioagiletic Laboratories, which is in, I think, North Carolina. And it's one of the top 10 pharmaceutical testing labs in the country. And they test pharmaceuticals there for their purity and that they have what they have. Well, the company sent them the redox signaling molecules and had them test theirs, and they approve every 500 gallons. They have every 500 gallons tested. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. So there's the label on the bottle says that this has been done by this laboratory. This has been scientific tested and shown to signal the activation of genetic pathways or affect genes that improve immune system health, help maintain a healthy inflammatory response, help maintain cardiovascular health and support arterial elasticity, improve gut health and digestive enzyme production, modulate hormone balance to support vitality and wellness. And the importance of the seal is that if that wasn't true, then the company would be charged $20,000 per label per bottle. And this product is now in 34 countries. It's been in America for 9 years, and it's been overseas for 2 years, I think is the longest it's been. Maybe a little longer, I'm not sure, but I do know it's in New Zealand too. And Germany, and it's the gel is in the Philippines, and the government is just now getting ready to approve of the liquid there too. So anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's an amazing product. I highly recommend it. It was my miracle, and I am really excited about it. And every testimony I told you is true.
Thanks, Kathy. I just wanted to know if anybody had any questions. If you could the information of how to get this product, Kathy, then I can pass. Sorry?
The Lord has blessed me. I mean, it is a network marketing company. And the reason they went with that was that a pharmaceutical company wanted it and offered them, I mean, an unbelievable amount of money. And the guy that invented it was already rich. He didn't want the money, he wanted people well, and he knew the price would be too high. So he refused it and decided to do network marketing with it so the word would get out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I became involved in it. So
Okay.
I can help you get it. I can give you more information if they want it.
Okay, so I can direct people to you on Facebook. Okay,
Facebook,
Kathy is on Facebook. It's Kathy Bontranger, Bontranger.
Bontrager.
Oh, not Bontranger, Bontrager. Bontrager. Kathy Bontranger. Bontranger. The reason I wanted Kathy to share this with you tonight was I've known Kathy for a couple of years, and then Joe Kelly and I met Kathy when we went to Idaho. And Kathy was debilitated. And then just recently, Kathy and I have reconnected, and she's back on my Wednesday morning mentoring group, and she's like can do normal things again. She's like normal again, and so this was so.
100%, but I'm close. I mean, I still have to rest and stuff. I'm closer. I mean, I'm not jogging yet, but I will. I will jog.
Yeah. So I was so impressed with what had happened to her, and then some of the testimonies that she told me, that I wanted her to share this with us, because there's so much new scientific technology that's coming out that, unless somebody tells you, you don't know. That's really basically what it is. And so a lot of people suffer because they've got all these problems, but if we knew about the new technology, we wouldn't be suffering. Like Kathy wouldn't have suffered like she suffered until she found out about this product. And so there is that as well. We also know that there is the spiritual side of it, which Kathy had dealt with, and Kathy and I went into the courts together, and so I can say we did some things together, Kathy. And so I'd say from the spiritual side, she'd done just about everything that she knew she could do, but there was something else that was needed, and this was the product that was needed. So that's why I wanted to share it with you, because for me this testimony was so powerful that I wanted other people to actually benefit from what Kathy has experienced. So I'm very thankful that you were able to share with us, Kathy. I really am. And I'm so glad to hear that it's in New Zealand, because I know there's a couple of people that I know in New Zealand that need this product as well. So thank you.
I can hook them up too.
Yeah.
And it's my passion to help people. It really is, because I know what it's like, and I know there's a lot of, if I was one, I know there's a lot of hopeless people out there.
Yeah.
I didn't go into it for the financial blessing. That was just an added bonus. I mean, it was all a surprise to me. And it's new, so.
Well, it's restoration time.
It is.
So, Kathy, I want to say thank you to you. I want to encourage you to go and watch the rest of this meeting, because I'll be going out of Zoom now. But Jen Spry is here, and she's got incredible information to share with us on how to deal with emotional trauma that affects the DNA as well, and the cells. So she's qualified in that realm, and so she's going to be sharing a lot with us. But I felt that the two of you would kind of dovetail off of one another, and so it's really powerful. So I want to say thank you, Kathy. Thank you for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. And let's all say bye, Kathy. Bye, Kathy. Okay, and see if you can watch the rest of the meeting.
I will. I'll go out and watch it.
Okay. Bless you, sweetheart. Love you. Talk to you on Wednesday. Bye. Yeah, she's definitely like a new woman. Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. So we're very excited about that, and so thank you for being here as close to 7 o'clock as you could all get here. It was just that I wanted to have both, and we wouldn't have time to have Jen and Kathy unless we started at 7 o'clock on the dot. So for the rest, this video, we'll take it down tomorrow morning. If you want to go home tonight and watch it, you can go home tonight and watch it. You can watch from the beginning, especially somebody like you, Connie. I think it'll really benefit your situation as well. And so you can go and watch it tonight, but we will take it down tomorrow morning, because I think there's people even on the East Coast that might like to be watching this, and they usually watch a day later. So, you know, the New Zealanders watch us online. We know that, but, you know, other people do go a little bit later and watch us. So it's wonderful to have all you online people with us, and we're so grateful that you're here and watching with us, and it's wonderful to have the rest of you all here tonight as well. It's lovely to have Brenda with us. Brenda's been visiting us quite often lately. Yeah, it's good. And Linda, it's so great to see you again. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, awesome. Well, just to let you know that I leave for New Zealand on the 8th of May, which is, it's about 2 weeks from now, 1.5 weeks from now, and it's a Wednesday, so next Friday will be my last meeting. And I think next Friday may be Jocelyn's last meeting. Is that correct, Jocelyn? Yes. So what we'll do is let's have a big party next week. A big party to say farewell to Jocelyn, and a big party to say bon voyage to Cheryl. So I do want to share some more on the intimacy, because I really believe that that's where God is leading us. And also it's part of what I'm going to be sharing in New Zealand. So I want to get more material to share in New Zealand. So I'm trusting that we can share that next week in New Zealand. Pray for Julie. Her mother passed away. So she just texted me this afternoon and said she would have loved to have been here tonight, but her mother just passed away. And then next week she's going to be in Michigan on business, so we're not going to be seeing her for a while. Who are some of the other people that are not with us? I can't think just off the top of my head at the moment. But don't know where Chris is. Chris, where are you? So, so I think we should hand over to Jennifer. For those, Jen. Jen. Jen and I have known each other, we discovered 9 years. Can you believe it? 9 years. She's my daughter. She's my daughter in the faith. Well, not really. I mean, I didn't lead her to the Lord. I think her mother did. But we've known each other for 9 years, and we've walked together and done a whole lot of things together. And this is probably your 3rd time ministering at Heaven's Place?
At least.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And so every time we've really enjoyed Jen's ministry. We've enjoyed having Jen here. I have the blessing of having her till Monday. Yay! She arrived yesterday. So she spent the day in the sun, I didn't. As you can see. So, but it's really good to have Jen here. And the little bit that she shared with Kelly and I last night is we want to know more. We want to know more. So it's good to have you, Jen, and I trust that we will all receive. I thank you for the ministering angels that are here right now, that are ministering to each one of us, that we can receive everything that the Spirit of God wants us to receive, that we will retain everything that the Spirit of God wants us to retain, and that we will know and hear and be able to experience, not only for ourselves, but to help others as well. Amen.
Okay. Hello. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit more about who I am and what I do. Currently, right now, I am a psychiatric nurse. So I work in an acute setting, which means when somebody's unstable, in many different states, I feel like it's a little bit misunderstood, that people don't really understand. Statistically speaking, when somebody goes into a hospital for care, whether they go to the emergency room and then are then transferred to an acute hospital, they say that these patients have 4 times more trauma than the average human. If the average person has about 5 things that have gone wrong in their life and their childhood, like a grandmom dying, parents getting divorced, a car accident, maybe something happened with their house or their marriage or their child or a sickness, a person who ends up going into an acute care setting has at least 4 times more traumatic incidences than the average person. Statistically, we know that in childhood in particular, there's statistics on a website that right now RAINN, and a lot of different websites that tell us that we're up to about 2 out of 5 girls who have been molested, 1 out of 4 boys. When we look at addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol or other things in the household, the numbers are even higher than are actually staggering. That these children who are raised in those homes already from the start, before the age of 10, oftentimes have more traumatic experiences than the next person or an average person. So what I find is that when these patients come in there, and yes, we have a whole variety. We have people who are really sick, and they are probably going to go to a long-term setting, but majority of the patients just are really upset and really depressed or really anxious. They went to the emergency room because they did not know what to do. They could not be alone anymore. They don't have enough family members or friends or family to stay there 24/7, because the moment that someone leaves, they're left alone with themselves, and the depression, the anxiety, the fear, and everything else that can manifest from that happens, and they don't feel safe for themselves or for others. And that's when they go for care, and oftentimes the emergency room handles them in a certain way and sends them off to a hospital that I work at. They come in there, it's a shock to the system. They want to know immediately how they can get out of there, because this isn't what they expected. They thought they were going to get one-on-one counseling, some good therapy, and some coddling, and we put them into a group of like 30-some people who are screaming, yelling, hollering, fighting, complaining, being depressed, being anxious, and everything there in between. Oftentimes, the good part about that is it is a reality check for many of them that this isn't where they want to be. Somehow they're going to have to pull their life together to get out of this place and have a quote-unquote normal or healthy life. I'm a unique nurse in this setting. Many of the nurses, and we have our techs who are amazing. They work with these people every day to redirect them and help them. What we always say is use your coping skills, but oftentimes they don't really know what their coping skills are. But what I do know is that we have survival skills, which are the skills that are natural instincts, surviving instincts in a human when they're in a traumatic situation that take over, but they usually come at a cost or with a side effect that they continue and are persistent through our adult life and so on. So we want to change some of those natural survival instincts or survival skills and turn them into healthy coping skills. So whenever you take something out, you want to put something back in. Many times people don't realize that. And the way I teach a lot of my patients and clients is that if it's, something that you did, whether it be, going in for drinking, or you have an anxiety, or you're whatever your OCD, or whatever you're doing, whatever time of day it normally happens at, because a lot of times patients have a certain time of day, certain day of the week. Whatever time of day that you have that unhealthy habit, that's when you want to take a good coping skill and insert that into that time frame or into that time slot. I don't always like looking at clocks, so I encourage people to get an actual hourglass. So if it's something that you were doing, like maybe at nighttime, you felt anxious at a certain time. I know a lot of people, when patients get older, we call it sundowning and stuff. It's between like 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock where people oftentimes struggle the most. And I always tell them, get that hourglass out so you don't have to look at a clock, but you can just look at the sands. And you can just do something different. Figure out what that is that relates to you and that you can replace that normal unhealthy habit with and put something good in there. So in this setting, I introduce myself to them, and right away it's very clear that I'm not just giving them their medications, which is what a good nurse does. Medicates them, helps redirect them and all that stuff. But sometimes and often I explain, depending on the patient and the scenario, that I'm also an expert on the topic of PTSD, and particularly childhood trauma. I myself not only am educated, but am experienced. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. I was trafficked at 8 years old, and the trauma went on pretty much my entire life. Trauma really starting at 2 years old until years ago. But with that said, everything that I share, or everything that I teach, or everything I do with my clients or my patients I've done myself personally. So it's something that I'm not only educated about, passionate about, but I'm knowledgeable and I understand where they're coming from and I meet them where they're at. So let's talk about trauma. Most of us know that, when something traumatic happens, we'll give the example. If there's a car accident, you have 3 or 4 different witnesses. The police know, they'll get one story from one person, another story from another person, and so on. And especially if the trauma happened to the individual, there's a lot of times little gaps or missing time frames. I'm also my background, so psychiatric nursing. I'm a business person with patents and all that stuff, business world. But I'm also a forensic nurse examiner. So I do a sexual assault exam, pediatrics exam, elderly abuse, gunshot wounds, knife patterns, and wound patterns. So I'm trained in all these areas. But all of them have to do with trauma. So when a traumatic situation happens, and do I have to continue using this, or can I just talk? I have to use it? I speak with my hands. I'm Italian from Philly, okay? So I'm like, oh my gosh, all right, so I'm gonna have to hold the mic and, no, I'm used to a lavalier. But anyway, all right. Okay, so when trauma happens, if you're the person that's going through the trauma, the front of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, it actually shrinks up in the traumatic situation. And when it shrinks up, it creates little cavities, little areas. So when the neurons pass through on the neuronal pathways, when it's signaling and firing information to you, your brain is shrinking, and the nerves and the memories and the neurons and everything's passing over, but it's not hitting all the areas and all the pieces. It's not taking the normal pathways. So when you're done the trauma and the brain goes back into a normal condition, a normal state, when the person, oftentimes a rape victim or assault victim, will have actual missing pieces, chronological pieces, and just they can't tell, they don't know. Sometimes people have sought hypnosis and different therapies and stuff, trying to remember, even in their own childhood, trying to remember what exactly happened, when it happened. And the reality is, more and more we learn about this, the more and more we're realizing that that person may never be able to fully remember. And that's okay. It's the way the brain works. So we don't want to force it because it's something that maybe they don't fully remember. Now, we also have the situation where denial. Denial is what is considered one of those survival instincts or survival skills. Yes, it helps you get through the moment or through the incident, but a snapshot of denial is, okay, and I use this story. Maria is in like 11th grade. It's 4th of July, summer. She's at a picnic, family picnic. Her whole family's hanging out. Everyone's there. Her boyfriend's there. She's drinking. She's underage drinking. She's hanging out with everyone. She says, good night, I'm gonna go home, and kisses her boyfriend goodbye, her parents goodbye. She's only a few blocks from the party. She drives to the gas station. She goes into the gas station, goes in to pay, and this man opens the door for her, but he sees her and turns around and walks back in. So he starts following her down the aisle. She's flirty and friendly, and he's complimenting her and saying things, and she's like, oh, nah. And he's like, come on, give me your number. And she's like, no, I have a boyfriend. And he's like, oh, you're too pretty, and just flirting away. Well, he leaves, and she pays, and she's just like, she's in a little outfit, and she looks cute and feels friendly. So as she walks out to her car, she just turns and gets past the gas pump, and the guy jumps out and grabs her and drags her to the side of the gas station, and there he rapes her, assaults her on the side of the gas station in the dirt. He takes off running. She is so traumatized by what just happened, thinking about her miniskirt she's wearing, how she flirted with him, how she talked to him, how she's going to tell her family, how she's going to tell her boyfriend. She goes back to her car. She doesn't even pump the gas. She just gets in her car and she drives home. She goes into her room. She wants to shower off and just get everything off of her and just forget about what happened. She goes to bed. In the morning, her parents are like, get up. And she's like, oh, I'm sleepy. Just, the rest of the week, she's just sleepy. She's tired. She doesn't really want to answer. Your boyfriend keeps calling. He keeps calling. And her family keeps asking her, like, what's wrong? Come on. It's summer and stuff. And she's shutting down. She wants to forget what happened. This is a normal human response to trauma. Many of us have lived a life of just forgetting and living in denial of what happened because we think, oh, we don't want to live in the past. We don't want to think about the negative things. But this stuff takes hold. It has a place in our heart and a place in cellular memory. So as it goes, she's, a little bit less with her boyfriend that summer. She goes back to school, the beginning of school. Everyone's all excited. Everybody has new sneakers. It's senior year. She goes into school and everyone's like, hey, Maria, we barely heard from you. How were you? How was your summer? As soon as they start asking her about the summer, automatically she has to sort of shut down. She's like, summer is fine. Who cares about summer? Let's not talk about summer. Let's just talk about it's our senior year. We're graduating this year. Let's just focus on that. Because every time she thinks about summer, she has to think about 4th of July and think about what happened that night. And she just can't bear to think about that. She never told her parents. She never told her boyfriend. She just wants to block the whole thing out. She didn't even go to the doctor. She just took her chances, just blocking it out. School goes on, and there's prom season, and it's beginning the end of the year, and everyone's getting excited, and they're like, where are we going for senior week? And everyone's like, summer's coming. As soon as she starts thinking about summer again, she's disconnecting. She's unengaging with her friends. Her boyfriend and her, by the time school ends, they break up. She doesn't want him even touching her sometimes because she doesn't want to think about what happened that night. That summer, she doesn't go to the family party that they have every year on 4th of July. Her family's like, where's Maria? And her parents like, oh, she's sick. She's at home tonight. She's at home sick. She doesn't dare go to that gas station anymore. She doesn't even drive down the street. She just avoids things to just forget about what happened. She goes off to college. Her college years she's struggling with depression. She starts having a little bit of panic attacks. She's struggling in school. She was an A student before. And she just doesn't understand. Now her parents are telling her, go to the therapist, go to someone. And she's going to a therapist, and they're putting her on medicine because she's depressed, and she's starting to have anxiety problems. But every time somebody asks her, oh, where are you from? Where's your town? Every time she thinks of her town, she thinks of her school, she thinks of that year, she thinks of that summer, she thinks of 4th of July. Upon layer, upon layer, upon layer, upon layer, she has to block everything out, and that's the way a lot of people have lived, blocking out layer upon layer upon layer. They say it's an onion when you go in therapy, and you're just peeling things back and stuff, but this is what denial looks like. It gets to the point for some that she starts having short-term memory and starts forgetting things because every time she remembers something, it's all linked in our memory, and that's the way our brains were made. But every time she thinks about it, when somebody asks, how was your childhood? How was your high school years? She can't even remember what high school was like because you'd have to remember that year, junior year, that summer, that 4th of July. There's some of us and there's some of you who someone says, oh, how was your childhood? And you can't really remember. You can't really remember exactly all the good times or the bad times. There's a lot of spots that are blank in between. That's because many of us did what we only know that comes natural. And it's our survival skill, and that's living in denial. The problem is it does fester, it does show up somewhere, whether it be in sickness or depression or anxiety or anger. So everything's about getting closure and healing. Now, for some people, and particularly men, anger. If a guy was abused or molested in childhood, a lot of times he becomes a very angry person. This could be female too. Very, very angry. And these people are very, very angry that many of them end up in jail by their early 20s. They're in prison because they went into a bar fight or they went into a fight somewhere and then just wailed on someone and took that anger just too far and let anger from their childhood or from their past come out on that person, and now they're doing time. For some of those people, somewhere along the line, they realize they can't do that. They don't want to go to jail. That's not the solution. That's not the answer. So when somebody has these unresolved issues, this hurt, this bitterness, when we're sinned against and hurt like that on that level, it goes deep inside of us. I mean, there are some assault victims who have been assaulted, and every year on that date, they don't even realize it, but during that month, on that day, at that time of day, their body goes into autopilot and actually reacts on a subconscious cellular level. There's all different treatments out there, myofascial release and different things like that, and people offer hypnosis and all that stuff. But what I've learned is that the key to it is closure. So these angry people who learn to not vent their anger, well, anger has to be expressed. Now, people don't really understand that, but anger does have to be expressed, and that it has to be done in a healthy way where we find some type of closure. But anger that's not expressed goes inward and becomes depression and self-loathing. The feelings of bitterness, offense, unforgiveness, which leads to hatred, anger, and murder, is on that person's heart and ends up being the way that they think about themselves. So often, very depressed people have, if you get past the layer of depression, what you find underneath there is anger and rage and unforgiveness. So, what do we do about all of that? How do we go back and fix these issues and get closure? None of us have the 20 years that Freud would like to suggest. None of us are able to do, yes, no one wants to go on the couch and bring all that up. And that is not what this is about. But science has caught up with psychology, and there's something out there. There is techniques and different things that different doctors are using. And I have one that I learned like 11 years ago, and it was taught to me one way. I changed it, tweaked it. You can tweak something 3 different ways and reintroduce without infringing, and here I stand before you. And led by the Holy Spirit, can guide you through something that takes about 5 minutes, but gets to the core of a memory and heals, brings that healing in there and sets people free. So let's talk again about that 4 times more trauma than the average person. I always like to describe it as, so picture like a glass vase. There's a beautiful glass vase, okay? We have experiences, and we put these big rocks. Now, in our childhood, everything's magnified, everything seems bigger. So when you have trauma, the dad is drunk, and he's drunk again, and this time he's beating mom, and this time the kids got beat, and this time they're getting divorced, and this happens, and all these big rocks start piling up, and you're human, so you're only yay high and so big, and every human's average, and has this much that they can handle. And then you throw in the normal life issues and things that happen. A little pebble here, a little breakup here. Oh, you didn't get that scholarship, you didn't get that grade, you didn't get that job. Now your car is broken down. Now you're fighting with your family members. Now someone dies. So often when these patients come in, they've had the childhood, they've had their own issues of addiction or whatever it was, or a divorce or abusive relationships, and then they've had 1 or 2 deaths in the past year. Every time I listen to their story, I know what's coming. Trauma, 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 and boom, here they are at the very top. One more little pebble, a speeding ticket, your car just got towed, you just got a foreclosure note, and they just can't handle it. You just found out your spouse is cheating or someone's leaving, and the person just cannot handle another thing, not one more thing, and they quote unquote snap. Often, snapping looks like a suicide attempt. And that's really sad, because suicide is preventable. So, what this technique does is goes in there and takes out the big rocks, those big traumas. I did the technique and have done the technique. I've been doing this now for 11 years. When I first did it, I couldn't believe how freeing it felt. I couldn't believe that it actually worked. And then I studied and stayed and studied under the person that taught me it, the doctor who created it. The test was even taken to universities, and they studied it with MRI imaging. And they talked about the areas of the brain that lit up. So you picture your brain. You always see that little picture of the brain. And then there's a little tiny part of the brain in there. They call it like the original brain, the small brain, or there's a couple of different nicknames that they have for that little area. But right in the side of that area, this little almond-shaped area is called the amygdala. It's where your memory and your imagination are stored. It's where the natural human response takes place. It's where it lights up when people have fear or fright. When they put the MRI imaging, as Cornell and Harvard and many different schools who did this test, they showed images of 9/11 for people, and they had them all hooked up. Everything was all hooked up, and people were sitting there, and people were within a 5-mile, 10-mile, 25, 200-mile radius, and they started showing the images, and people were having full-on anxiety attacks and fear and everything, and they were showing the parts of the brain that lit up. The little area, that little amygdala, is the part that lights up the most. Your memory and your imagination are right next to each other, woven together. That's why it's on a subconscious and even cellular level that we respond to traumatic experiences. Let me just, a couple little things I'm going to read about this. So, what does science say about the amygdala? The definition and function of the amygdala is the almond-shaped section in the nervous tissue located in the temporal side of the lobe of the brain. It's in that little area. The thought is that it's part of the limbic system within the brain, which is responsible for emotions, survival instincts, and memory. And we also know imagination lights up that same area. The location. Part of the limbic system in that little near the hippocampus. It's right deep inside the deepest part of the brain. And there's so much, more that the Egyptians talked about that little part of the brain and so on. And we talk about even our toothpaste, not to get fluoride in that part and so on. But there's a lot to that, because it's where we see things and imagine things and respond to things. It is responsible for the responses in memory, emotion, especially fear. When you think of the amygdala, you should think of one word: fear. The amygdala is the reason that we are afraid of things outside or out of control. It also controls the way we react to certain stimuli. When people have traumatic PTSD or traumatic experiences, we all know that the 5 senses, sight, hearing, smell, seeing, and things activate these senses. Like if you see something and hear something, and all of a sudden someone might have fear. I've worked with many people who have had abuse in different forms. One of the people, the smell of bleach. Her mother was abusive with bleach when she was a child. And as soon as she smelled bleach, she went into a terror, started running around, fearful. I mean, like somebody who had night terrors, and this was during the day, and just somebody was cleaning, and it smelled like bleach. It was awful. In this area, any event that stimulates can cause the emotion that we see the potential for that is threatening or dangerous. So let's also go to the Word. In Psalms 107, 13 through 16, and this is the Message version, the Lord says, "Some of you were locked in a dark cell, cruelly confined behind bars, punished for defying God's words and turning your back on the high God's counsel. A hard sentence, and your hearts are heavy, and your soul, and there's not a soul in sight to help." A lot of times when we've been through something, especially in our childhood or even in our adult life, there's like no one that can really reach us. No one who can really help. And if anyone's ever struggled with suicide, you feel so alone, because even when people are sitting there right beside you, nobody really connects with your soul. Then you called out to God, and in your desperate condition, He got you out in the nick of time. He led you out of the dark, dark cell, broke open the jail and led you out. So thank God for His marvelous love and His miraculous mercy to the children He loves. He shattered the heavy jailhouse doors, and He snapped the prison bars like matchsticks. Many of us, that's our story with the Lord, that He got us out of a dark, dark cell. Because of my childhood and what I've been through, I've been there. I had 3 suicide attempts before the age of 10. One with one of the other girls I was trafficked with. We both ended up surviving. We still talk about this day and just can't believe that neither of us died. It was a full-on attempt. But what else does the Lord say? In Isaiah 53:5, He says, "But He was pierced for our transgressions, and He was crushed for our iniquities, and upon Him the chastisements that brought us peace, and His wounds brought us healing." in Lamentations 3:21 and through 23. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, and his mercies never come to an end, and they are new every morning, and great is his faithfulness. 2 Corinthians 5:21, for our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that we might become his righteousness. And 1 Peter 5:7, casting all of your anxieties on him because he cares for you. And the last one, Psalms 91, 4 through 6. Many of us know Psalms 91, but this part is something special to me. He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are the armor and your protection. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrows that fly by day. Do not dread the disease that stalks the darkness, nor the disaster that strikes midday. Anyone who's been through trauma can relate to these verses, and all of us can relate to the word. God says that he will break us out and he will deliver us and set us free. When someone's been through trauma, most of my life, I've been saved by 5, spirit-filled by 7, and I'm even prophesying as a kid, even as I was going through my trafficking, being held down and smothered and raped on a daily basis. I would pray in the spirit and in my head, and it would help alleviate or stop the pain. And even as I went to bed at nighttime, I would cry myself to sleep, always saying it felt like I had a belt around my waist, and because it just hurt so bad from the front to the back. So much so that I've had reproductive surgeries and all that stuff. But as I would cry, the Lord said he always would talk to me, and it was Jesus when I was a little kid, and he would tell me in my heart that he had a plan and a purpose for my life. And yet each of us have heard that spoken over us. And yet I still struggled, even in my adult years, with this plan and purpose, because life, I couldn't handle another pebble, another thing going wrong, another breakup, another disappointment, another discouragement, another fight, anything. And in the darkest hour, the last time I ever contemplated even suicide. And suicide's a tough word to talk about, especially in the church, because we're not supposed to talk like that. We're not supposed to admit that we go to those deep, dark places. Oh, I've read the Bible characters and looked at many of them. Even Elijah said, take my life now, I'm done. And David said, please, haven't I done enough? Many of them had struggled with this. I looked at these things, and it was then when I sat there feeling very, very suicidal. I had medicines lined up and could not take any more. Now, anybody on the outside would think, oh, she's doing great. She's in school and doing this, and she's got a job and she has a nice house and her family and her friends, and everything on the outside means nothing when you feel so empty and broken on the inside. And when I sat there looking at all these things, for so much of my life, I lived because of God, meaning I didn't live because I didn't like my life. I did not think I got a fair shot. I didn't like how it ended up. I didn't like how it began, or anything really in between. But I thought, well, for God, this plan and this purpose, fulfill my destiny and so on. It all for God. That's why I'm living. Well, it took the darkest time, the darkest night, and into the next day, it was in the middle of the afternoon, that I thought, this is where they're going to find my body, on the couch. And I'm supposedly doing so well, helping all these other people, and people are going to be disappointed. And when I sat there, I kept thinking, God, just tell me, just speak to me. And just give me that reason, because everything I've done is for you, and it's all for you, and there's nothing else. I don't care about anything else. And he was silent. Deafening silent. So silent that I didn't understand and realized he'd been silent for the whole time, that whole 24-hour period. Silence. And I kept crying out and just saying, come on, like I'm getting ready to do this. You see me here. And it was silent. And then, as I sat there in that silence, people talk about the dark night of the soul. I realized I don't think I've heard him for a couple of days now. wow, this might be for a week or two. I thought, oh my gosh, like, he's my everything. He's the only reason I'm living and doing things is because of God. And I didn't even realize that I hadn't heard him for a little bit, and that was upsetting because then I felt like bad. But in that moment, as I looked at those pills and thought about my family, I had to come to terms with if there was nothing else in this world to live for. I mean, if it wasn't to be that sister, that good sister, if it wasn't to be that daughter, wife, friend, if it wasn't because of who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, none of that existed, because at that moment, none of that really mattered. And then it went one step deeper and further. And I was sort of not really angry, because I haven't got angry God. I know it's not God, and I can't wait to get to heaven, because this earth if it was like heaven, we'd all live in heaven. So, but in that moment, I had to think, and if there wasn't a God, because the silence was so thick, if there was nothing else, no sister, no family, no friends, not the reputation, the people I help, and even if there was no God, and it was just me, just you, were the only reason to exist or to live. And at that very moment, I looked down, and in my arms was like I was holding a baby. I looked, and I was like, oh, this is getting weird. I looked down, and the baby looked like me, like the baby pictures I remembered, the little blonde hair and stuff, and I just looked at that baby. And in my heart, I heard, is she worth living? Is she worth it? She brings nothing to the table. She can do nothing. She's needy, dependent, needs things. You got to take care of her. Like, this is a little baby. If I looked at each and every one of you as a little baby, each and every one, even the people who are listening from afar, if you looked at yourself like the little baby the moment you were born and created and brought into this earth, and you looked into those little baby eyes, would she deserve a chance? Is she worth living? I cried, and it broke. Because as I cried and looked at her and thought, even if she does nothing, she's worth nothing, and there's no God, and there's no family, and it's just a little baby who's going to need stuff, she deserves a chance. Live and let live. She's worth living. And when I made that decision in my heart, the moment I made that decision that she just deserves to live because she was created, it all opened up, and instantly I felt angels come into my room, and I felt the Lord ministering to my heart and to my soul and telling me, you're right. He wanted me to love myself. For the first time, I wasn't living for him, but I was living because I was created. I was a created being, that he wanted this, and I wanted me to want this. And that's when, it was the last time I ever contemplated anything so dark. And the last time I ever thought, we're worth it, each one of us, no matter what our problems are, no matter how much we struggle, no matter how much we fail, the weaknesses that we have, the process, the journey we're still on. Even if we were just as simple and as needy as a little baby, are we worth it? And the answer is yes. And when I finally said yes, I realized in that moment, wow, I think that's the first time in my life I ever fully loved myself. Because it didn't have to do with who he said I was or what I was supposed to be. It just mattered that I was. And that's what he said. Because you are you. And that's what he loves, each and every one of us in that unique way. So, when we look at our life experiences and our traumas, I want us to get that closure and that healing, because when you do, you take out those big pieces, it's a lot easier to fill those areas. As I said, when you take something out, to fill those areas with love. Oftentimes we're taught love of self is bad, and pride and ego and vanity and all that stuff. But a lot of times we miss the mark in the body of Christ. And they say, oh, you have to love yourself first before you can love someone else. Get some oxygen before you can give it. But many of us don't even know how to really love ourselves, because we don't see that value. We see more of the value in who we are in Him and what we can do for others. And the reality is, the value is that He created you fearfully and wonderfully made. Before the earth was formed, He knew your name. And that's what He wants us to come to terms with. Now, back to trauma. Often in the church, you say you've been through something really bad. They say, oh, prayer, and deliverance, and oh, you got it really bad, more deliverance, and so on, which is great. That got me through my life. But I also had to learn that we are made body, soul, mind, will, and emotions, and spirit. And just like the Lord in 3 parts, we're in 3 parts. That until these areas are all addressed, your body has to be physically, you need the healing. You need to be able to move and do things. Your soul, your mind needs the therapy, whatever is getting you through, whatever exercise programs, this program, that program, coping skills for our soul. And our spirit, yes, prayer, deliverance, and that intimacy. And ultimately what I had to learn was that the baby needs to live and let live, that even if we have nothing to offer, we're worth it. So all 3 areas, all 3 parts of us have to be healed to be made whole. So what we're going to do tonight is a trauma technique. What this does, it works 1 memory at a time. Now that's the part that's, because some people have hundreds of them. When I first did it, I then did hundreds of them. Now I even still do it occasionally. We went camping a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and a guy had a really bad seizure. And I'm a nurse. My sister's a nurse. The other one was in medical. And the guy fell out, and it looked really, really bad. We were all like, ooh, like it went from fun to like, ooh, medics. And it was like, okay. So the next year when we went to go camping, my little sister was like, hey, do you remember? She didn't even have to say anything else. We were all like, yes, we remember. And all of a sudden I realized, ooh, I can do my trauma technique on that, because obviously there's something there that maybe I can still get some closure on. So that's how I live. When I have a traumatic experience, I want closure. Every time I get that closure, it frees me up to fill myself with more love, because what's in gets poured out. So let me explain how this works. So it's longer to explain it. It's like 5 minutes to do it, and you can immediately test it afterwards. I love things that you can immediately test. On a side note out there, I think I will just throw this out now so I don't forget at the end. But for people who suffer with anxiety or full-on panic attacks, and people out there listening, a lot of science right now is showing that if you have a full-on anxiety attack or panic attack, now this is not getting to the root, this is just treating the symptom. Go to your freezer and get a frozen pack of vegetables, get something frozen. If you're somebody who, you can put it in your purse or in your console of your car. I have one of my clients, when she's driving, has anxiety attacks when she gets in traffic, like a bridge, traffic, and different things. So I have her snap the pack and put it right on the back of the neck. If you put it right on the back of the neck, right at the base of your skull, right at the stem right there, it will, within 2 minutes or less, immediately stop the chemical-mediated response that is happening in your body that's creating the full-on panic attack. So anybody who suffers with anxiety or panic attacks, you do not have to suffer anymore. Now, granted, this doesn't stop the root cause, which is steeped in fear. Usually anxiety is fear of the future, fear of the unknown. But it will stop and be a good Band-Aid for somebody who suffers with that. And when you take the ice pack off, it doesn't start back up, it doesn't come back up, it actually resets that chemical mediated response. So that will probably help a lot of you out there. So now, back to this. So the trauma. So in this technique, I'm going to explain that, what I want you to do, and I'm going to guide you through this, okay? Now, for people out there, I'm not going to be able to ask you the questions, but as I ask people around in the room, I want you to get an idea of what I'm asking, and then you'll be able to follow through, because this is along the lines of what's called guided imagery, which means I walk you through the technique. And so there are some unique situations or circumstances or like memories that'll be a little bit different than probably what we're going to encounter tonight. So let me address that first. What I'm going to do tonight with this group is we're going to pull up a memory from the past, from our childhood, and particularly I prefer to go 10 years old and under. I'm going to ask you to pull up a traumatic childhood memory. It's probably something that's affected you the most. And we're not reliving it. We're not giving all the gory details, nothing like that. But I'm going to ask you to freeze it in your mind's eye. And if you had to picture it out in front of you, the memory, frozen, mid-action, the perpetrator, the younger you, which will be you in the past, and then whoever else is in there. You might have a parent, a mom or dad. You might have some siblings. It might have been that you were bullied as a kid, and it's you out front on your bicycle, and some kid's pushing you over, and there's a couple other little kids there. There'll be some people that will be in the memory that are more innocent. There'll be some people in the memory who are guilty but not as guilty. Say it's the mom, and she allowed the dad to be drunk and hitting the kids. So you'll have the mom that's like sort of guilty, the kids who are innocent, the dad who's the perpetrator, and you who's getting beat. Now, this is the traumatic memory. This is when you're the victim. There's going to be some people watching, or even someone in this room, who you were actually the perpetrator. A lot of people I work with, male or female, were actually the perpetrator, and they have guilt and shame. I just worked with someone recently who had cheated on his spouse. And we went through the memory, and he just had so much guilt and shame that even though she accepted him and took him back, and the family, and he has kids, and he just could not be the person he was meant to be. I ended up leading him to the Lord and then doing this work with him, and the guy was a new man. No more guilt and shame. Literally went home to his wife and was able to be the husband and father that he all of that guilt and shame that he harbored, all that became potential and destiny for him, because he was going to be the person he was meant to be. So if you're the perpetrator, I handle it very differently, and that I'll have to do. It's not something I'll be able to do tonight, because I'm going to walk you through this technique tonight. But if that happens to be you, I guess maybe reach out to Cheryl and we'll see what we can do. This is for you being the victim, okay? Now, I'm going to have you pull up the memory in your mind's eye. So I'm going to explain to you how we're going to do this, and then I'm going to walk you through it. And for those listening at home, we're going to walk you through it. They have no way to interact with us, like, or type? Or... Do they have a way to interact with us if they have a question and they want to type something? Is there a way? Okay, so bear with us. We're going to try to do this if you guys need that. But so the idea is, so let me explain a little bit more, because I got to explain forgiveness. So we already know as Christians we're supposed to forgive everyone. And as we know, that's a really hard thing. Especially there's some really good teachings out there that say if you still have that tinge of feeling, or you still have a little something, then it's another layer of forgiveness you have to work through. And this is true. But I always say, if you have a happy heart that is happy, passionate, excited, what color would you draw it in? You'd use red and make it all happy, and it's a warm, happy, passionate heart. But picture somebody who has unforgiveness. If you have unforgiveness, somebody has hurt you so bad, offended you so bad, a lot of times the patients that come through the hospital I work in, the ones that are the angriest or sometimes have the most problems, I have tried to work with them. Everything sounds nice, but it comes down to actually forgiving and releasing the offender. Because say they were raped and assaulted all from like 2 to 10, they cannot do it. They will not do it. They want justice, and they will not forgive and release. Unforgiveness is that seed of bitterness that grows into hatred, anger, murder. And then you get the fruit of that. And if you don't vent that anger, it goes inward, and all those things that you felt about that person, that heart that's supposed to be red and happy, if you drew unforgiveness in that heart, or bitterness, anger, hatred, or murder, what color crown would you use? Black. You'd probably scribble really, really hard and draw really heavy outside the lines and all over. Well, that's what a heart looks like that holds that unforgiveness. And that black is necrosis. It's dying. So we have to forgive in this technique and release. It has nothing to do with the other person, forgiveness. I don't care if the other person's 10 miles away, 1,000, or they're dead. This has nothing to do with them. When we make the decision in this technique to forgive and release, we are taking that darkness that was still there on a cellular level, and we're releasing it. We're taking it off of our heart and releasing it. So, and I'm going to ask you, and don't do it yet, but I'm going to say, in your mind's eye, I want you to think about what memory, and even right now, start thinking about one of your childhood memories. How much time do we have? Okay, so we can probably do 2 memories tonight. So think about 2 of your, you got the chance to do it tonight with me, so think about your 2 worst memories that you want to like get rid of some of the trauma off of you. You're not going to forget. Your mind is still going to remember what happened, but it's going to stop the flashbacks, the nightmares, the triggers, and what I call daymares, which is that projector that constantly, at any time, you can tap in on that and see that horrible incident or incidences being played out in your mind. So I'm gonna have you close your eyes. No, don't do it yet. And I'm gonna ask you to pull up the memory so it's out in front of you, like a picture in front of you, a still frame. And it's gonna be mid-action. If someone's getting beat, someone's getting pushed, someone's being raped, assaulted, whatever it is. If you're on the phone and you just found out your parent died and you're the only one in the memory, that's the same thing. You could be just the one person in the memory or many people in the memory, but it has to be frozen mid-action. Then I'm going to have you fast forward to the next point in time when you were okay or safe and pull up a memory, freeze that. It could be anything. It could be you playing with your siblings. It could be you eating ice cream. It could be whatever it is. Freeze that. I'm going to have you rewind past or over the middle memory to a time before that when you felt safe or okay. Because sometimes people say, I was never safe. And I understand that. So a time when you were okay. I don't care if you're in the crib, a playpen, whatever. But even if you have to picture one of your baby pictures because the stuff happened so early on. But pull up that memory, freeze it. These are your end caps. These are like the safety points. The way I always like to look at it is these end caps, safety. When God does things, a lot of times in the spirit and the natural, he sets an arc. He sets the bases and the end points. And when he speaks over us, it's the promises that are over us. So I think of these 2 endpoints as the endpoints of the ark, and the promises of healing and restoration are being spoken over us. Then, back to the middle memory, your traumatic memory, all frozen. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I'm going to go around, ask each one with your eyes closed. I'm just going to probably tap you on the shoulder since I don't know all your names. And I'm going to ask a few of them in the front row. Everyone else and everyone online, you'll be able to follow along and get the idea. And then, so I'm going to ask you something, and then I'm going to tell you what to do. Basically, you're going to picture yourself, the way you look today. So everybody look at what you're wearing and how you look today, who you are today, the age you are today, walking into the memory. So you're going to see the back of yourself walking into the memory. I'm going to have you go over and dress younger you, pull your younger you to the side. I like to pull younger you to your left-hand side. And there's a whole bunch of stuff between the right and the left and the way the brain works and your abuser values that come on the right-hand side and stuff. So we pull younger you for safety to the left. Speak to younger you, and I have you put her or him directly behind you. Now remember, a lot of times this is going to be a little child, so you're going to guide them by their shoulders, but be looking at them. And this is going to be so fascinating because the imagination and the memory are stored in the same area. It lights up the same parts of the brain. There's no such thing as time and space when it comes to the imagination or your memory. That's why, just like that, you can remember cookies cooking at grandma's house, or you can remember walking on the beach, or your first time doing this. Your imagination and your memory are stored together, and there's no such thing as time and space in that area, in that part of you. So, the younger you goes behind you, and then I have you address the people in the room, and I tell you how to do that, okay, based on who's in the room, if there's anyone else in the room. And then, collectively as a group, I tell you all, okay, bring out younger you's out in front of you. Always look at his or her eyes because you're going to be looking at their little face and stuff, and they're going to be shocked and surprised to see you there. Because what this technique allows you to do, there's no such thing as time and space when it comes to imagination and memory. You're able to go back into time and rescue self. that little piece of you. Picture a heartbreak, or you break up with someone, or you've been through something traumatic. It's like a little piece of us was left behind, that little piece of us. So you're going back and you're rescuing, where many of us should have had somebody rescue us or someone intervene, and no one ever came to the rescue. This is finally your chance to go back and rescue self and show love to that little piece and bring that little piece back into your heart. And at the end, I have you hug and merge that little piece back into your heart. It takes about 5 minutes. And when you're done, I have you open your eyes, and then I have you test it and go back and see how it was fixed, how it was changed, how it was different, and how peace and love came in, and how that little piece of your heart, back a piece in time, was brought back and healed and mended. So, are we all ready? Does everyone have one memory? Because we're only doing one memory at a time. So, one memory, preferably in childhood. Does someone not have a bad child? Because I do love good stories. And there's some people who are like, you know what? I never lost a cat. Grandma's still alive. My parents are still together. We always had a nice house and food and had a great childhood. But somebody has something somewhere. If you had the most amazing childhood, which I know you're out there, I love that. But you probably had something somewhere, so you can pull up some kind of traumatic memory to do this with. Everyone here, do you have something like 10 and under, something from your childhood? We're all able to get a memory? Yes? Okay. All right. So now as we're doing this, the only thing I'm going to have you say to me, mostly the only thing, is done. I'm going to ask you to say done after a few things. And even as we're all in here together, we're going to collectively, when you are done, you say done. And I'll tell you when to do that, okay? And for you guys listening at home, like I said, you can, has anybody typed in any questions or anything?
There's one response.
One response? What is that? Is it something?
They just letting us know they're there.
Okay, good. All right. All right. We're ready to do this? Okay. Everyone. Now there's science behind this too. So I want you to get what's called grounded. You've probably heard this term before. Feet flat on the floor, hands on your knees. I'm like, somebody knows grounding. Now the science behind it, quantum physics, your energy flows through your body in a certain direction. If anybody knows anything about even lightning striking, it's going to go through your body and exit out certain ways. When we get grounded, the energy, now people say the earth and all that new agey, but God created everything, all things are under him. So you put your feet on the floor, your hands are on your knees, and I want you to get good posture and sit, because we need oxygen. Our brain works on, I don't know if you know this, but fat and oxygen. So we need oxygen to fuel this, because you're going to feel some brain power go out when you do this, okay? It's pretty exciting and tiring at the same time. But, okay, everybody, I want you to get grounded, feet flat on the floor, hands on the knees. I want you to close your eyes, take a nice deep breath. Let the oxygen fill your lungs, your heart, and your mind. Take another nice deep breath. Fill the oxygen, fill your lungs, your heart, and your mind. And when you're ready, I want you to pull up that memory. Pull up that traumatic memory. But you're not reliving it. Only this time, it'll be inactive, like a still frame picture in front of you, completely frozen. When you pull up that memory, and you can see younger you, and if there's other people in there, you can see them all mid-action, completely frozen, inactive. When you have that memory up and everyone is frozen, I want you to say done. You guys are done? Done. Okay. From that point, I'm going to have you fast forward to the next point in time when you felt okay or were safe again. When you get to that point, I want you to pull up that memory. I want you to freeze it, and I want you to say done. 1, 2, 3, fast forward. Okay. From that memory, I'm going to have you rewind past or over the middle memory to a time before that when you felt safe or okay. When you get to that point, pull up that memory, and I want you to freeze that memory and say done. 1, 2, 3, rewind. Okay. Perfect. Now, back to the middle memory. Everything is frozen, completely inactive. I want you to carefully look around at the setting, the room, the colors, the lights, the people's faces, younger you's face, anything you can see. I want you to take it in and I want you to look at it. The way you are today, the age you are today, who you are today. Picture yourself walking into that memory. As you walk into that memory, first thing I want you to do is go over to younger you. I want you to guide him and her by her. If they're really young, be careful, be gentle with them. Guide them by their shoulders and pull them to the side. When you have them to the side, I want you to look into his or her eyes. And as you're looking into her eyes, his or her eyes, in your mind right now, I want you to tell that younger you everything that younger you needed to know, everything you wish that younger you knew then, everything you just need to tell that younger you. And when you're done, I want you to tell younger you it's going to be okay, that you love him or her, and then slowly, gently guide younger you so younger you is directly behind you. When younger you is behind you, out of sight, they cannot see or hear what happens next. When you've done that, say done. Okay. Now, this is where, looking back in there, I'm going to go around, I'm just going to touch you on the shoulder, I'm just going to ask you a question. For those of you listening at home, just continue listening. Now, if you have to look on your computer or look up, it's okay. There's no such thing as time and space when it comes to imagination or memory, so you can listen and look, whatever you need to do. But this is what I'm going to ask is, and I'll go to you first, how many people do you see in there? Do you see any innocent people? Or how many people do you see?
Two innocent.
Two innocent, and then you see what I would consider the perpetrator? Okay. And then for you, how many people do you see in there? No one else. Okay. And for you?
One person.
One person. Would it be the perpetrator?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. For you?
Two.
Two people. Is anyone innocent in there, or are they both perpetrators? Are they both bad? They're both innocent?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the perpetrator? Not in...
Speaking of them,
Hmm?
they're spoken about, but they're not in that.
Okay, they're spoken about, but they're not in there. Okay. All right, yours I'm going to have to handle a little bit differently. Okay. How about for you? All right, so, okay. I'll come back around when I have to speak with you. How about for you? How many people?
Just myself and one other person.
So your younger you should be behind you, directly behind you. So when you look in there, is it the perpetrator, the bad person? Or is it an innocent person?
The perpetrator.
It's the perpetrator, okay. I can't reach you, but yes. Perpetrator, okay. And for you?
There's a group, so probably 5.
5 good people or bad people?
One bad person.
One bad person, the other ones are innocent. Okay, for you?
There's several people.
Perpetrator, some innocent people?
They weren't like mean or anything.
Is your perpetrator in there? The bad person in there?
It wasn't like, it was like pedophilia.
Okay.
It was like,
The traumatic, okay, so yours is a little bit different too. Okay, so, okay. All right. Okay. All right, for you?
2.
2 people, and it's the perpetrator, anyone innocent?
One of each.
One of each, okay. And then last one for you.
There's 3 people, and they're all innocent, and the perpetrator name was the person that was an event.
An event. Okay, so yours is a little bit different too. All right. In a group setting? Yeah, and someone online has a question? Yes?
2 perpetrators and 1 innocent.
Perfect. All right, good. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is all the people who have their perpetrators and the innocent people in there, I want you guys to just pause that for a minute because I just want to real quick take care of the 3 people that we have right here that their situation is a little bit different and you might learn something from this and so on. So Close your eyes. You're supposed to be, okay. All right. I just have to ask you, so the situation, you won't have, who's in your memory right now? Who's frozen left behind in there?
3 girls.
3 girls, and there's no perpetrator.
They're the perpetrator.
They are the perpetrators?
And the 2 of us in the room, we're innocent.
Okay. Okay, so you have innocent people and perpetrators. Okay. So who was the other person? Did you have the perpetrator in there? What was yours?
I was just myself and a perpetrator.
Yours and a perpetrator. Okay. Yes, okay, so 2 more, okay. Yours, you have, who's left in the room? Yeah, when you see that picture, because younger you's directly behind you. Who else is in that room? No one, you said?
It's like, I have an aunt that's there that doesn't think I should be there because I'm so young.
Okay. A viewing, okay, so was at a funeral and a viewing, you were too young and the aunt was there. So the traumatic part of your situation is,
Every time I went to that house, always I was like, when I go to that room where they lay and stay,
yep.
it's like,
So is the traumatic part of this memory because of the death, because you were excluded, or because of the aunt?
no, I wasn't excluded.
Okay.
But my aunt thought I should be,
Okay, so,
and she said it in front of me.
okay, and she said in front of you. So let me ask you this. The most traumatic part of this memory is,
The funeral, because my uncle was so young.
so the funeral, the loss of the uncle. Okay. All right. So, all right, so I'm going to come back to you because we're going to handle yours at the end, because I'm going to handle, all right. So I'll tell you when am I allowed to say your name on here? Because I don't know if they just see the back of you. What's your name? Linda. So I'll come back to yours, okay. And then it was yours. What was the, how many, you said who was in there left over?
Yeah, there was 3 other innocent people, and the trauma was I was watching a house burn across the street.
So the trauma was the house burning across the street. Okay. Okay. So yours is a little bit like Linda's. Okay. So I'm going to say funeral, Linda. I'm just going to say the viewing, and I'm going to say house burning, and then you'll know when to jump in. Okay. All right. It gets interesting in a group setting. One-on-one. Okay. So the first things first. Remember, younger you is directly behind you. He or she cannot see or hear what's going to happen next. First thing I want you to do in your mind, I want you to go over to the more innocent people. If you have anyone that's innocent in there, for those of you who only have perpetrator or perpetrators, hold on. So for those of you who have more innocent people, I want you to go over. You're allowed to dress them individually, or you're allowed to dress them together as a little collective group. But walk over to them, the age you are today, who you are today, and I want you to gather them and herd them to the side a little bit. And when they're to the side, looking at them again, face to face, eye to eye, I want you to get off your chest and tell them if you need to forgive anyone in that group, even though they are innocent, or you need to ask forgiveness, or just together, just say whatever you need to say to them in your mind. The more innocent people, I want you to say whatever you need to say to them. If you want to bless them or real quick pray for them, after you're done, then just say, but now you have to go, leave now, and send them on their way. Send them to the left and just let them go, and they will walk off in peace. When you're done doing that, say done. I'm going to give you guys a minute or so, and then we'll come back to the perpetrators. So right now, go address the innocent people individually or as a group. Say what you need to say, send them off to the left into the darkness, and send them in peace. And then tell me when you're done. Okay. Okay. Now, the perpetrator. For the perpetrator, this is for anybody who has the perpetrator in there. I do not want you hurting this person, do anything, don't kick them, punch them, nothing like that. But who you are today, now remember, sit up straight, Get your grounding position, who you are today, the person you are today, what you're wearing today. Walk over to that person or people. You can address them individually or you can address them as one person or collectively as a group. I want you to get off of your chest everything that you felt about this, how that person made you feel, what it made you feel like, what they did, why it was so wrong. I want you to get off your chest and tell that person how you felt about it. You're allowed to scream, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to holler. Just don't hurt them. And then when you're done doing that, while you're still looking at the perpetrator, I want you to say done, and I'll tell you what to do next.
It seemed like a little bit of an overlap of when we approach them, we're doing it as the adult, but we're also, are we doing it as the child?
You're doing it as the adult. Great question. So close your eyes back, and because there's no such thing as time and space, so you can go right back in there. Go over to that perpetrator, who you are today, the age you are today, the way you look, what you're wearing. Walk over to that person and get it off your chest and tell them how you felt about that situation.
So we're doing it as more of a bystander.
No, you're doing it as you. Go over and say, you made me feel this way. That was horrible that you did that. Like evil, whatever you want to say. You can use whatever language you want to use. Just don't hurt them. And then I'll tell you what to do next. Okay? But while you're still looking at them, after you get it off your chest, after all these years, you're getting it off your chest how you felt about this. And then tell me when you're done, while you're still looking at them. And for the two of you who had the funeral, anybody else who's listening who didn't have any perpetrator in there, you had the funeral and you had the fire. I want you to look at that funeral place, and I want you to look at that fire, and I want you to speak right now to the fire and to the funeral place, and for your situation, speak to that and get it off your chest and tell it, the situation, the event, how it made you feel. And when you're done, and you're still looking at it, then you say done. Okay. While you're still looking at that perpetrator or perpetrators or at that event or situation, I want you to look at it, and in your heart first and in your mind, I want you to look at it and say, but I forgive you for doing that to me. And for the people who had events, I forgive you for happening to me. Now, out loud, because we're speaking this into existence, we're decreeing and we're declaring, I want you to say that person or that person's name out loud and say, I forgive you, so-and-so, I forgive you, and I release you. Out loud, collectively, everyone, whoever you have to forgive, or the situation, the fire, I forgive you and I release you. The funeral, I forgive you and I release you. The perpetrator or perpetrators, I forgive, say their name, I forgive you and I release you. Now, look around at that situation, because remember, you're who you are today, the age you are today, what you're wearing today. Look around that room, that situation, and whatever it looks like, and look around, and in your mind first, in your heart, I want you to look around and say, pain and trauma, leave now, and point it off into the darkness. The perpetrator, the perpetrators, I forgive you, but leave now and point it off into the darkness. And when you point them off into the darkness, point them to the right, and they go off to the right. Pain and trauma, leave now. That person, I forgive you, I release you, leave now. As they leave, the room gets quiet and peaceful. The area gets quiet and peaceful. Now it's safe to bring younger you out. To guide younger you out, remember that person might be a little person, so bring out younger you, so he or she is directly in front of you. When you have younger you out directly in front of you, you're looking at younger you, eyeball to eyeball, face to face. Out loud, I want you to say, dear self, I love you. I'm so sorry I had to leave you there that day. but I could not handle the overwhelming feelings of pain, sorrow, hurt, fear, rejection, disappointment, betrayal, and hurt. But today, I have come back now to rescue you. If you will come and live inside of me, then together we can be happy, healthy, whole, complete, mentally clear, confident, taking care of myself, loving myself, nurturing myself, accepting myself, and successful from this day forward. If you come and live inside of me, then I promise you, I will never let anyone or something hurt us like that again. And I promise you, I will do my best to protect you forever. Because I truly love you. Now come live inside of me. Now this is the only physical part. I want you to physically reach out like you're hugging that person, younger you, in midair. And when you draw your arms in really tight so your arms are wrapped around you and you're giving yourself that hug that you desperately needed. Reach out and hug younger you. Reach out and hug younger you. Draw your arms in, wrap them tight. She has been waiting forever for this. He has been waiting forever for this. You have needed him or her, and she has needed you. This is your confidence, your core identity, your self-esteem. This is who you are, who you are meant to be before this trauma, without this trauma. This is your strength. You are going to be happy, healthy, whole, successful, mentally clear, confident, taking care of yourself, loving yourself, nurturing yourself, accepting yourself from this day forward. And when you're ready, reach out and scoop her up, or him up, like in midair, you're scooping up. And when you scoop your hands and bring your hands together, bring your hands in and lay them flat on your heart and let younger you be reabsorbed back into your heart. Your heart is being mended and made whole, and the healing is taking place right now. Happy, healthy, and whole. Done. Right. All right, open your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. Okay. So, you guys are, I'm assuming, all believers. I can't even tell you how hard this is or how many people had to stop when it came to the point of forgiveness. They wanted this so bad. They want to be healed so bad. They don't want these issues that come along with this anger and this unforgiveness, which would be mental disorders and physical diseases, but yet they stopped at that point. I've had people white knuckle clenching the chair and just cannot forgive, cannot let go, and it's so sad. I'll be sitting there just praying and praying, like, please, the Lord, and just asking angels to usher in, and some of them have had to walk away and say, I can't do this. They'd rather live in their sickness, physical or mental, than release the other person. I have explained, it's their heart, has nothing to do with the other person. I have to sometimes even guide them through and say, this has nothing to do with the other person. This is all about you. You want a healthy red heart, happy heart, as they're white knuckled on the chair and tears are coming down their face because of the anger and the hurt. Thankfully, that was none of you. But forgiveness is always a deliberate act of our will and a choice to release. And that's what each of you did. In Japan, there's a tradition when somebody is getting married or they're pregnant or so on, the family members, what they'll do is they'll give that new bride or that new to be mother, and they'll give her a beautiful piece of pottery, whether it be the serving dish or a beautiful vase, and they'll give it to her. Now this tradition comes down from generation upon generation upon generation, but what makes this so special, unique, and priceless is that as that piece of pottery, that beautiful vase, when it's given, every time it's ever fell or cracked or chipped, they take it and they weld it, mend it back together with pure gold. The gold is woven through the pottery, through each little piece. It is more priceless, more valuable, more unique, and more beautiful than it ever was before because of the time and the history that has been passed on through the generations. When you have a beautiful piece of pottery and a vase, and you put that beautiful candle inside there, a warm effervescent glow goes on the ceiling, and it's beautiful. But when you take that same candle and put it into one of those beautiful pieces that has been healed and welded with pure gold, because it takes love and forgiveness, which is as pure as gold, that when you put that candle inside of that piece of pottery, not only does the light shine up effervescent and beautifully, but there's still little pieces of uniqueness where the light shines out, and the beautiful pattern and print is the pattern and print of your own heart that has been filled with love, mercy, and compassion because of your choice, your deliberate act of your will to love and forgive. And that's how we get healed, and that's how we walk in wholeness, each one of us, from any of the experiences or the traumas from our life. When you put that piece of your heart and mended it back in, you mended it with pure gold, and your heart is as beautiful as the light in that beautiful piece of pottery that shines everywhere. So, with that said, this is exciting. Let's go back and test it. Let's go back and test the memory. All right, everybody back in our grounded position, feet flat on the floor, hands on your knees. Close your eyes, take a nice deep breath. Now, I want you to pull up the original memory, the traumatic memory. Pull it up. Only this time, it'll look very different. It'll be lighter and brighter. Look around the room or the place. Do you see the same people? Is the perpetrator still there? Can you find younger you? If you can't find younger you, tell me so I can tell you how to do that. But if you find when you find younger you, see if you can look at him or her and see if you can smile at him or her and get him or her to smile back. When you get that smile, you got your closure. Congratulations. It is forever changed, forever fixed. It is amazing. I call it a miracle of science, technology, and psychology. It literally changes. It's so amazing the way the brain works and the way the mind works. And it was something that, was freely given to me, that I freely pass on, and it's forever fixed. Even when you go to sleep tonight, like our bodies heal, and particularly the mind. When you sleep, that's why when somebody's in a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, we put them in a coma state. We let them rest and let the mind rest. The brain heals. That even tomorrow morning when you wake up, try pulling up this memory. It'll be even more so. A lot of times, was there anybody who couldn't find younger you? Everybody was able to find younger you? Okay, so let me just ask you this. Was there anybody who, do you want to share and tell us what you saw different in there? What things were different? Did you still see the perpetrator? Did you still see, did you look at their faces? Did you look at the people around? People who had, situations? Were you able to see, their faces, and was there, a peace over it? Because you brought that into that presence and into that memory. Does anyone want to share about any of the changes they saw? Yes? Okay. Yeah.
I was able to go to the perpetrator and hug the perpetrator.
Wonderful. Something you probably have never done before. No? Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody the perpetrator is gone and just out of the picture? Gone? Yes. Yeah.
The perpetrator is out of my bedroom, and little me was in a dress, and it was light, and I was happy and bouncing up and down on the bed.
Yes. What you'll find is that younger you is doing what they should have been or could have been doing at that time before something traumatic happens. I find that with clients that when they have a lot of traumatic experiences, sometimes the younger you's hiding, that we have to actually go and find younger you. They'll be in their favorite hiding spot, sometimes in the closet or in the yard or a tree house, and we go and find them and stuff because they finally feel safe to not be in that traumatic memory, but to actually be where they had felt peace. So when you look around that memory, and even tomorrow when you wake up, look around, you'll see it's lighter and brighter. Sometimes people feel like there's like birds chirping and like flowers, and it just feels like you were able to bring peace back into that memory. And for many of us, it was the first time ever that we were able to be rescued, something that many of us wanted, deserved, and needed. So that's my trauma workshop, and like I said, it's not just education, but it's experience, and I'm passionate about others being healed. And like I said, it's body, soul, and spirit, and all three parts have to be addressed so we can be who we were fully meant to be, created uniquely and wonderfully, and so that light shines out beautifully, and all of us live our destiny and our purpose. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen. So now we can go home, and whatever else there is that needs to be dealt with, we can take each situation one by one and deal with them. For some of us, we've dealt with so much already that it's like, was there anything that's still there? So it's good to deal with all of these different things. And, you know, sometimes we're not even aware that we have these things. And so when we ask Holy Spirit to bring something back to our memory, He's faithful and He will. Kelly, you want to say something?
Yes. Like Cheryl was saying, I was thinking, well, it's going to be hard to find something I haven't really worked on. But I went back to a memory that I had worked on, and peace came in. That it hadn't. I had definitely forgiven, and the trauma had been dealt with, but peace came in. Yeah. And the person who should have been protecting me from the incident also showed up, and I was able to forgive them as well.
Good. That's interesting. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'd also worked on the situation that I went into as well, and it was actually interesting because I'm thinking, I've worked on this, why am I going back into it again? And I think it was just so that I could actually see that even though as a child I didn't have authority, now I have authority in that situation. So that was really good because I'd never had the authority. In fact, what I was doing is I was sitting on the bonnet of the car and not sitting on the ground in front of the car, because all of this took place on the ground in front of the car, and this time I was sitting on the bonnet of the car, and I'm the king of the castle was what I said. So it's just different, and that's what little children would say. You know, I'm the king of the castle. So that was quite interesting. So it's a good tool for all of us to use and to deal with issues in our own lives, because sometimes we have more than one issue that's actually brought trauma into our lives, or a similar situation that is replayed again and again and again. And that's where maybe we need to go back again and again. If there's been abuse and it's happened maybe 10 times, maybe we need to go into each situation where there's been abuse and deal with it so that we'll actually be strong enough in that.
It works on the level, like I said, memory and imagination are in the same area, in the same region, light up together. A lot of times synergistically, that they'll light up together. And for many of us, like you said, the memories I did and have done, I've dealt with under the blood and through deliverance, but this was on the imagination level. And that's why we're able to go back and see the differences and stuff. So it's a powerful tool just to add to your tool belt of, taking care of yourself.
And of course, we've been taught that imagination is the same as inspiration. So if it's inspiration that's leading us back into that situation, that actually is Holy Spirit leading us there. Because imagination is a word that was not around when Jesus walked the earth. So that's something that we've been taught just recently, which I haven't shared with you, but maybe I'll need to share with you. So you want to say something?
I was sharing with Jen when I heard she was coming. I didn't know exactly what we were going to be learning, but I had a dream where the very end of the dream, somebody said, Jen's here, and I got up because I wanted to go hug her. And I got up, and I was so little, and I started laughing. And the woman next to me said, why are you laughing? And I said, because I'm so little. Look at my legs. I'm so little. I need to be bigger. I can't reach her. And she was all glowing and had golden hair. And I went up to her, and she said, where are you? I said, I'm right here. And she said, no, where are you? And I said, oh, I live in Maricopa now. She said, no, where are you? And that was the end of the dream. So, and then I found out she was teaching on a cellular level. And still coming here tonight, I'm like, oh, cellular level of abuse, I've got that. I know what I'm going to be tackling. I come here thinking that I'm going to be tackling the certain memory. And she says, no, we're going back to childhood. And when I'm little, and the memory that came up was about my Uncle Randy. And just 3 nights ago, I had a dream where somebody was saying to me, where's Randy? And I said, I don't know. My Uncle Randy's passed. And I said, I don't know. Where's Randy? I said, I don't know. Why do you keep asking me? I know, and I knew that he had passed, and now here today. Yeah, so that was the memory that came up, was him that I got released from. Thank you.
Yeah, God is good. So thanks for giving us a tool that people can then take and use and help to share with others as well. So that's really good. Just as a reminder, let's trade into that. Just as a reminder, let's trade into that. One of the things that I've come to understand is that if we value something, we trade into it. And so this is a valuable tool for all of us. It's a valuable tool for us that we can minister to others, but it's a valuable tool for us to use for ourselves as well. And so we can trade into that, and we can see. If you want to give by text, it's 480-405-4151. If you want to, you can give by cash. We still take cash and we still take checks. If you want to, if you online, you can go to the web page and you can go to give, and you go to quick give. And it's always the easiest, the quickest one that you click on. Click, 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 quick, quick, quick. And then it's easy to fill all of that in. So if you need envelopes, Kelly, thank you. You'll get some envelopes for us. Okay, there are some envelopes in the cupboard. I just forgot to put everything out tonight, didn't I? So, anybody online have any questions?
Said they had a hard time pulling the memory back up.
Yeah. Okay. They couldn't pull the memory up.
Yeah, but that means sometimes the memory's totally gone. So I would ask that person, for the person who responded online and said that when they went to go back and pull up the memory, that's okay. What I want you to do is go back and try to pull up that memory. What you're looking for is younger you. And this a lot of times happens when there's multiple situations of abuse, and particularly with the memory that Cheryl just mentioned, that if it's the same perpetrator over and over, different situations like that, what I want you to do is go back and try to pull up the memory, but in particularly, I want you to try to find younger you. And when you find it, especially if you knew of any hiding spots or anywhere that little younger you would go and be, go looking in your imagination for that spot and go find younger you and smile and get that smile back.
Okay. Yeah. Well, most of the situations that we're dealing with now, even health issues, come from the trauma that we've experienced as children. So once we get our younger us healed, the younger children healed, and we actually have come to the place of loving ourselves, then a lot of things change. Just a reminder that we're having a wedding tomorrow. For those of you that were earlier, you saw the gazebo and the chairs and everything outside. So we've got all the white chairs and the gazebo up outside. So at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're having a wedding, and everybody's invited. So it's going to be a 2-hour wedding, I'm told. I don't know if I've ever had a 2-hour wedding, but anyway, I'm told it's going to be a 2-hour wedding. So it starts at 11 and over by 1. It'll start at 11:11 and be over by 1:11, I've been told. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. Is there anything else that I need to... It's Don and Yvette that are getting married. Don and Yvette, yeah. Yeah, when he proposed to her here, about 3 weeks ago, a month ago? About a month ago, and now they... Oh, you saw in the video, okay. And now they're getting married tomorrow, so it's very exciting, really exciting.
I was going to say one more thing. So you know I described the glass vase with all the rocks and stuff that we can see all those big rocks. When we take out these big traumas, especially the childhood ones that are magnified in our life, picture when you take out that big rock, all the other little rocks, the little daily nuances and so on, it all goes down. So if you do this tool again and you work it through and you have Holy Spirit lead you through this and stuff, remember it's pulling up the memory, freezing it. There's 2 safety end caps. Going in, you always address younger you first and then the more innocent and to the perpetrator. And then you really what you're saying is just that you love yourself, accept yourself, and you're inviting that little piece of you to come back. But when we take out these big rocks, we can handle a lot more of life experiences in a very healthy way. So the end caps are the frozen memories that are the safe memories or okay memories. Yeah, they're, like I said, everything that God does, he anchors in that arch. And he speaks over us in his promises. And I draw it like a rainbow, because that's how I see it. And when we go back to the traumatic, we're going into it under the covering of that rainbow, under the covering of his promises and the blessings over us. And we go over, and we're bringing that love, which is that pure gold. And we're bringing the love and forgiveness into that situation. And we're telling ourselves that we accept ourselves. So, and that's where we, again, have the love for ourselves and so on. And so we can love others and be the person we're meant to be. So.
Okay, so traditionally what we do is we sound the shofar over our offering. Now, where is my shofar? Where did it disappear to? Which corner? That one there? Oh, okay. There's the smaller one there. I'll just use the smaller one.
There's one on the table right there by the camera.
Yeah, but no, that's Joe's. This is mine. Thank you. Get out. Huh? It's in the corner. I can see it, but I can't get there now. Well, don't worry about it. No, I'll just use this one. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So if you've still got your offering, hold it in the air. Hold the bucket up. Okay. So, Father, we thank you that tonight, as we sound the shofar over our offering, we thank you that our offering is acceptable to you. Amen. Hallelujah. Do you want to do the blessing for us, Joe?
Sure.
Thank you.
Everybody stand. Raise your hands over yourself. Yavarecheche Adonai ve'ishmirecha. Ye'er Adonai panav elaka v'yikuneka. Yesa Adonai panav elaka ve'yasim laka. Shalom.